Hi Megan, I've looked over your lesson plan and there are some really strong points in here. I'm going to go over it step by step with you and tell you the areas I think that are strengths and the areas I think that we could fill in some gaps, okay? So nice, clear, comprehensive information up here. I think this is good. I think it's reasonable too to think that ninth graders like know the difference between character, plot, setting, literary text, things like that. Your established goals and your essential questions are well written and well aligned. I think that that's very important too, so that way that what you're trying to get out of the students and what you're telling them to do are very consistent with each other. Okay. Your students will be able to, did have a little question on this. You say by the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify the basic facts and the central facts, and I wasn't sure if you were just talking about characters or plot or what. And then this one here, they'll be able to take a text, identify the main characters, so then that made me think, okay, maybe fact is just plot, as well as begin to recognize and evaluate the main themes. Okay. So I guess it's just the word the facts that really kind of threw me off. Over here you clarified it as character, setting, theme, but over here you separated fact from character and theme. Okay? All right. Your formative assessment makes sense. They'll turn in a piece of paper identifying characters and themes of the short story handed out during class, although you called it a short story here and then you chose a poem, so I wasn't sure if those pieces were one and the same or not. And then I see that your summative assessment, right, is a standard 5-paragraph essay choosing a theme, and so that's what you'll be working them towards. So well aligned, I just wasn't quite sure short story versus poem there, okay? All right, so your hook is well aligned, and I'll be excited to see that on Tuesday. And then you move through here into journaling. Okay, and into your direct instruction. That's where I wanted to go, was direct instruction. Okay, good. So I like how you're talking to the students and telling them exactly what it is you're going to be doing, what you expect. You know, I know what the students are supposed to be doing while I know what you're supposed to be saying. Your definition of theme is actually inconsistent with your own handout. So you say themes are the fundamental and often universal ideas explored in a literary work. So I'm sorry, it's not like different than your handout. But when you get down here, this is inconsistent with your handout. You say, so given definition of theme, what are examples of theme, not specifically in Romeo and Juliet, but any text in general? And your handout correctly points out that theme can't just be one word. Theme is a thought, theme is going to be one of these words plus the author's thoughts on that word. So love is an idea, but if you want to turn it into theme, you would say like love sucks, right? That's theme. Or fear prompts people to change in powerful ways. That's how you take an idea, fear, and turn it into a theme, okay? Hopelessness is an idea, but hopelessness can never be completely dissolved. That's a theme, okay? So work on the examples of theme there, all right? But I like that you have them write that down. And I also like that you provided some differentiation somewhere in here, right, that you would give the kids the handout in case they needed it, all right? So when you're modeling how to identify a theme as well as a 5-step plan to identify the theme, okay, I'm going to, bear with me while I scroll, and I'm going to jump back over to your PDF, okay, and we're going to look at that because I've got some concerns about the handout and the potential need for direct instruction in the handout, okay? So here's what I was talking about earlier, right? Theme is not expressed in a single word, okay? Here, we have identifying the theme in 5 steps, all right? First, there's this. Summarize the plot, okay? 1, summarization is a skill. You need to make sure that the students know how to do that, what your expectations for summarization are. Second, this was a little unclear. Are they to write one sentence that contains all of this, or one sentence for exposition, one for conflict, one for rising action, one for climax, okay? Also, while students will remember what plot is in general, if you were teaching this unit up front, like say in August or September, you might need to run over some of the fancy language arts terms again, just real quick. What's exposition, guys? What's climax? What's falling action? Things like that. Identify the subject of the work. Truthfully, I'm not playing games with you. I don't really know what that means. Because if here I'm summarizing plot, I don't know what subject of the work means. I'm so sorry. I could make 1,000 guesses, but you'll need to clarify that, okay? Third, you have identified the insight or truth that was learned about the subject. How did the protagonist change? What lesson did the protagonist learn from the resolution of the conflict? This question is huge. That is a monstrous-sized question. That question asks people to be able to analyze a character and look at characterization throughout an entire text. That's a skill in and of itself. It's a sub-skill that may even need to be taught before you can jump into theme. This one too, state how the plot presents the primary insight or truth about the subject. Again, I'm not quite sure what the subject is. If I wanted to just play with this a little bit, I might say, okay, the subject of Romeo and Juliet is what? Marriage? Love? The different kinds of love? Family feuds? I'm not quite sure, okay? And then state how the plot presents the primary insight. Your ninth graders are not going to be able to pick this up and just do that. You're actually going to need to teach step number 4 as a sub-skill. That's really high level. I wonder, if this is an issue of velocitation. Remember we discussed that in class before, right? And then write one or more generalized declarative sentences that state what was learned and how it was learned. Again, that's huge. Okay, what was learned? I could simply say there isn't a simple in Romeo and Juliet. I could say that the audience learned that hasty situations involving emotions can end in deadly situations for some but resolve family feuds for others? I don't know. And then how was it learned? It was learned through reading the play and looking at the plot. To be like a jerky ninth grader to you, These are such massive questions that each of them is almost like a subcategory in and of itself. You could take an entire unit just to teach how to do this. Here it says, is the theme supported by evidence from the work itself? You probably are going to need to teach them, or bare minimum review with them, how to cite evidence and how to defend choice of evidence. And then this says, are all of the author's choices of plot, character, conflict, and tone controlled by this theme? That word in and of itself takes this into a whole different category, okay? So do you see what I'm getting at here? That, bear with me while I flip back and forth into your lesson plan, okay? So right here, let me get back to the place I was at. Sorry about that. Hold on. I should have some hold music for you, shouldn't I? So right here, you have, I'm handing out a workshop. We're going to read a passage from Gatsby, and I'm going to ask you to do the 5 steps. Read it out loud. Okay, using your 5-step plan, let's answer the questions, okay? I'm going to break the class into 5 groups, and within your group, you're going to answer the corresponding number to your group. You'll have 5 minutes to answer, and then each group will share their answer and justification to the group. So essentially, you've told them what to do, but you have not showed them what to do, and you haven't modeled for them what to do. I also am a little concerned that the Gatsby passage you chose doesn't actually have all of the information that they need to do the 5 steps for the theme analysis, because it talks about understanding the plot from beginning to end, and the passage you pulled doesn't really have plot from beginning to end. It's a moment. It asks you to understand characterization, and unless I personified the smile, I suppose I could do that. I could personify the smile and talk about characterization of the smile, but these are ninth graders you're asking to do this, right? We need to teach them. And you didn't walk through this with them. Remember that when you're modeling, you want to demonstrate how to do the skill, then you want to guide them through how to do the skill step by step. Then you want to release them to independent study. You skipped the modeling and you skipped the guided practice, okay? Additionally, you have read Act 1, Scene 1 and 2, list the themes you're beginning to show, and explain your reasoning. Okay, students are incapable of doing that on their own. You sent it home for homework. Homework is not something that we've talked a lot about, and so I won't say much about it here, but in general, homework is only meant for them to practice the skills, again, that they practiced in your class. The only skill you asked them to do in class was to pull theme, not read Shakespeare. Reading a play is hard for kids, reading Shakespeare is hard for kids, okay? So, let me scroll back up, all right, to here, okay? This is where I want you to focus, all right? We're going to break this direct instruction down, chunk it down a lot smaller. I want you to see that the 5-step worksheet that you made, and by the way, if you got that from somewhere, you definitely want to put that source site on there, okay, is actually 5 sub-skills that in and of themselves need to be developed. And then I want you to see that modeling is essential right here. You are telling them to do it, not showing them how it's done. And modeling, showing how it's done. Okay? And then you want to think guided practice. Okay? I also am questioning the choice of your clip from The Great Gatsby because I think that I think it's not straightforward enough. And we want to choose, when we're modeling how to do a difficult skill, we want to choose really accessible texts. To be straight with you, I often use children's lit and excerpts from young adult lit when I was modeling, because they're really simple and straightforward without a lot of inference involved. Okay? I hope that's helpful.